There is only one you, and that is your superpower. You can't F that up. However, you can get stuck. That's why I created this space called Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons. Unstuck Yourself is about figuring out what has you feeling frustrated, isolated, or depleted of energy so that you're able to unstuck yourself on your journey through life when you don't know how to move forward. Unstuck yourself in your career that no longer excites and challenges you. Unstuck yourself with negative thoughts that seem to be doing cartwheels in your head consistently. I don't have the answers. You do. You always have. I'm providing the time, space, and grace for you to reconnect to that knowing. I'm Crystal Simmons, coach, speaker, and facilitator, and I'm grateful you made it here. Let's begin to unstuck yourself. I'm so excited to share with you all my special guest, Kirkman, who made me laugh the entire time of this conversation. But Kay asks, what do you do when you've done everything that you were supposed to do, but still find yourself asking the question, what do I want to be when I grow up? This is the place that Kay found herself back when facing a possible layoff from a company where she worked for almost a decade. She asked herself, how did I get here? To fully answer that question, she had to go back to her childhood dream of being a radio DJ, which is super dope. For a long time, she knew exactly what she wanted to do with her life. That was to be a radio program director and have an on-air shift as, you guessed it, a DJ. A series of restructuring and layoffs found her shelving that dream and eventually settling into a sales career. While she enjoyed sales, her true passion was training and coaching other sales professionals to higher levels of success. It was then it started to click for her. There were a lot of people going through life aimlessly, never finding that role that truly lights them up, gives them purpose, and makes them jump out of bed in the morning. She decided to get formal coach training to gain the necessary skills to help others follow their dreams and start to design their work around their life and not the other way around. Fast forward to September 2020. To when that dream of becoming a DJ finally became true, thanks to an emerging media platform called podcasting. The GenX Career Show was a perfect fit for Kay. Rather than just having a radio show, Kay could focus specifically on helping people find their career passion and deal with all of the mindset drawing that comes along with it. Y'all already know, the true Crystal Town peeps. This podcast will be specifically designed to help inspire professionals to discover their passion so that they can finally find or create work that they truly enjoy. Over 75 episodes later, the show is still going strong, and Kay is able to help others through coaching, speaking, and training on all things career. When she's not coming up with new episodes or coaching and training clients, you can find Kay curled up with a good personal development book, spending time with family and friends. Without further ado, y'all enjoy this dope-tastical conversation with Kay and I. Hey peeps! The purpose of the Unstuck Yourself with Crystal Simmons podcast is to not only highlight my personal stuck moments and experiences, but to also create a space and community for others to share their stories, voices, and experiences to inspire each of you listening. And your experiences are just as important and should be shared as well. So today I have the lovely Kay Kirkman. And before we dive into all the awesomeness of what you are currently creating and building, please let the peeps know about little Kay. What paved the way for the current Kay that sits before me today?
Wow. Well, first of all, Crystal, I am so excited to be talking to you. I feel like you're my little sister from another mister after just one conversation. So, but wow, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today. But little Kay, oh my gosh, little Kay was a very inquisitive, talkative, always asking questions, curious little girl. And I think that has really paved the way for me today because I am curious. I am a lifelong learner. As a kid, I loved school. I love learning, probably one of the few kids who did.
What was your favorite subject?
English.
Oh,
English.
Man. I struggled.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
What was yours?
It had to be math. I was really good at math.
Oh my God, I'm so envious. Nah, math was not my thing. Even though somehow I always found myself in these advanced placement classes.
Yes.
And I had no clue. I always had tutors. My mom would always get me tutors, but I was just very curious about life. Like I always questioned life. I remember one time I asked the pastor at the church that I went to, why do we bow our heads when we pray when God is up in the sky? Like I just remember little questions like that I would ask, like, who asked these questions?
Me? Did he give you an answer? Because I'm curious.
He did. I still remember to this day, he said that the reason that we look down is because it's like we're bowing in reverence to a higher power. That's why he said that we look down, because it's a sign of reverence. So I remember that even as a kid. Yeah. So, but yeah, I was just very curious, talkative, always talking, always, And so, yeah, not much has changed. Still talking.
And Kate mentioned that she looks at me like a younger little sister because her and I met via Facebook, and we have similar, I guess, connections with Kathy Heller. So her doing her programs and so forth. But Kate reached out and we got on Zoom and literally talked for 2.5 hours.
Nuts. Like, oh my God. And then it was like every time we were trying to get off the phone, we would talk about like another subject. I was like, or the Zoom, on Zoom. That was so crazy. I never do that with, like with, you like what you do with your friends, it's like you're trying to get off the phone, but then there's like, you start a whole new topic. Yeah, I really did feel that. It was so funny. And like you said, I just totally randomly stalked you.
No. And like energy attracts like energy. So she reached out and I was like, cool, we could do it. And it was a full day, but I still felt that energy. So I was like, I'm going to get on, just see how it goes. And I am on this path of trusting myself more. So I say yes to certain things and I also say no to certain things. But in that moment, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, I am kind of tired. 2.5 hours, guys. Like,
that was crazy. I know at the end you were kind of like, okay, bye. I caught that.
And look at this.
You were about to get into something else, and you were like, okay, bye. I was like, damn, done now.
I am dying.
Stuff just went out the window.
No, because that's real sister. Like, all right, you getting on my nerves. Leave me alone. I'm tired. But all right, love you. Talk to you later.
Bye. And then I didn't hear from you for a couple of days. I was like, uh-oh. She's probably that girl talked me to death.
No, I was tired. But I told my husband, I was like, I had so much fun. I was like, remember I told you there was a woman who reached out to me. Her and I talked for 2.5 hours. It was such a good conversation. And I had thoughts about our podcast. And it goes to show that Kay followed her heart, her intuition. And it was like, I'm going to reach out. And we are here. And we promise, pinky's up, Kay. We will not talk for 2.5 hours today.
We will not. We will not. We are going to hold ourselves accountable.
Yes.
Little Miss Crystal.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
That is my role. And in case some of you are not aware or haven't had the chance to do so, I asked Kay to read the article. Some of you may have listened to the previous episodes for imposter syndrome. And this article is titled, Stop Telling Women They Have Imposter Syndrome. So I was like, Kay, because her and I hit it off on Zoom and we're talking, I was like, she would be the perfect person because of her background, because of her expertise, because of her just knowledge and experiences with other people. I asked her, I was like, hey, do you mind reading this article? I'm thinking that's what we should talk about. And Kay was like, yeah, I got you. Let me look at it a little bit later. Text me back. And here we are. So I'm curious, what sparked your interest when you first clicked on that article?
As a career coach, this is the type of thing that I coach mostly women, some men. This is the type of thing that they come to me with because it's like they're looking to find their dream job, find their career passion, and there's something that keeps getting in their way. And so one of the things that they talk about all the time is this idea of imposter syndrome. And, I have a podcast too. A podcast listener, literally after you sent me that article, I had a listener reach out to me, never talked to her before, never interacted with her before. And she specifically talked about imposter syndrome, because I think if I hadn't done an episode on it, I know it's a topic that has come up on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And she was talking about how that's one of the things that she's working through. So she appreciated me having the topic on the podcast, but kind of like what you said, I was like, when I read that article, I was like, wow. So do I really have it?
Yes.
Or could it be part of what they're talking about in the article? I don't know if you want to get more into it, if you want me to elaborate on that piece, but
yeah, go ahead.
About just how in the article, they're talking about this whole idea of imposter syndrome is really heavily related to the work environment. And that's one of the things, or the work culture. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot too is, so often we go into these roles and we look at the salary, maybe we look at the benefits, you know what I mean? Or maybe how far it is of a commute, but we don't look at the culture a lot of times. We don't look at the culture. And so it was interesting because I really had never thought of this idea that the culture or the environment could actually be fostering this idea of imposter syndrome because of the lack of diversity, because of, the misogynistic nature sometimes of the workplace. So it was just an interesting concept to think about because I really had never thought of it that way.
And I love where your listener had reached out and appreciated your work on your podcast. Go ahead and shout out the podcast for the people.
Oh, yes. It's called the GenX Career Show. It's all about Gen Xers, but also anybody who can relate to this idea of really trying to find that thing that really lights you up in terms of work. So,
and some of you might be listening and thinking, hey, Crystal is a coach as well. And she helped people transition or coaches start their coaching business. This is not a scarcity space. I'm looking at a beautiful Black woman in front of me who has shared so many great stories that expanded my just vision, my dream. So I appreciate her for that. And there are people who are going to gravitate towards UK, and there are people who are going to gravitate towards me.
Oh my God.
We have like energies, but we're not the same person. And your expertise, I don't have what you have. And I appreciate to be able to share that for people who may be looking for something from me, but I don't have that to offer. But I do have connections, and I thank you for being here. So I wanted to highlight that.
Oh, and I appreciate it. And can I just say one thing about that too? Because it's so important that just in general, I literally, it's so funny. I literally just did a podcast. I just recorded it yesterday. And it's all about this idea of scarcity mindset. And how sometimes what happens is that, especially because your listeners, many of your listeners might be in some sort of transition. It could be a career transition, relationship transition. Life is all about these transitions. What I was talking about is this idea that sometimes we get stuck in something that's supposed to be a season of transition turns into a season of scarcity, of lack, because we can fall into that mindset. And then instead of something being temporary, now that's all of a sudden the way we look at the world. And so the whole way I started thinking about it was this whole idea of people talking about jobs and how some people you talk to say there are no jobs out there. And then some people you talk to say there are not enough qualified people to fill the job. So anyway, just this whole idea of scarcity, I'm so glad you mentioned it because yes, there are people that are going to gravitate more towards you for whatever reason, even though we're both coaches, even though we talk about different things. I have coaches on my show all the time because like I said, I don't feel that there's lack, there's abundance, there's more than enough for all of us. Yes. So I love that you highlighted that. Very important.
I have a plane going over my head. I don't know if you can hear it. The house is shaking a little bit. Like, what is going on? I keep hitting mute. And I wanted to also bring it back to where you mentioned you read the article, and I want to shout out, even though I mentioned it on the previous podcast, still going to mention it again. Stop telling women they have imposter syndrome. Thank you, ladies. I actually reached out to Jody Ann Burry on Instagram and was like, hey, I saw your article. Do you mind if I reference it on my podcast? And she was like, absolutely. And here's the link. And here's the other link for the workplace culture. And I was like, oh, awesome. Like, it was just so cool. Because thankfully, the imposter syndrome topic popped up in my head from a listener and a coaching peer, because I asked for her input of topics and she mentioned, and I was like, when you say imposter syndrome, like, how does that show up? So I shared about that. But I'm thankful for this article. Just like you were saying, Kay, most of us don't look at the culture. And we think we won't know the culture until we get into it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What comes to mind when I say that for you?
Well, yeah, it's like we don't do our due diligence, meaning could we potentially talk to or reach out to people that already work at the company to get a feel? Are there people in professional organizations that we're connected to that may give us a feel? And then I love what you said about we think that once we get in it, we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Or another one that I think, especially as Black women, because I think as Black women, we just feel like been there, done that. We know the drill. We know the code switching. We know that we're going to have to, maybe hear something if our hair is dreaded or, that might be an issue, or if we have braids. So I think that we kind of have this attitude like, okay, this is just how it is as a Black woman in corporate America. So regardless of the culture, I know going into this, there are certain things that I'm just going to have to deal with because I'm a Black woman. Like, I think we go into it that way. And then we get into the environment and we don't even realize how toxic it is and how that's impacting us.
Correct.
Because it's almost like we just get used to it. It's just like if you're in a relationship and let's just say that you tend to get into these relationships with domineering personalities, or, there are other kind of dysfunctions that you just normalize.
Yeah.
That's it. We normalize dysfunction. And in the workplace, it's so prevalent. So we're just like, well, that's just what you deal with. Mm-hmm. And then we don't realize how it's impacting us.
I love that you brought that up because I'm listening to a book and I want to make sure I don't want to quote it just in case I'm talking about the wrong book, but they had mentioned how you were saying normalizing the toxicity or the dysfunction. And they gave an analogy of, let's say you had a nail stuck in a part of your arm. You know what book I'm talking about?
No, but I think I've heard this story. I've heard it a little bit differently, but yeah, go ahead.
You basically are already, quote unquote, damaged. You have this nail in your arm. And just like you said, Kay, as a Black woman, I already know I'm gonna have to deal with this. I already got it. I know how to play this game. It's been happening forever. But you're still trying to shift yourself. So just to take a shower, you got to raise your arm because you don't want the water to hit the nail that's stabbing you in the arm and bleeding, or you're trying to wrap it up, but it hurts. Or you don't wear long sleeves that are tight. Like, you're always trying to make accommodations. The seasons are changing. Your arm is exposed and it's freezing. Like,
so good.
What if
good point?
Reading this article took me back to the beginning of, it's not me.
Right.
And how does that feel to be like, I'm not damaged? Because I have lots, that doesn't mean I'm unprofessional. Because my skin is darker than you doesn't mean I'm broke and don't belong here. Exactly. Just because I am a female or I don't identify as any type of gender means that I'm less than. How powerful is that to think, no, it's not me. It's the culture. It's what people have built. And I don't want to say it's us against them, because them could be, this is what I've been told to do.
Right.
How are we any different as Black women? We're like, oh yeah, I grew up, people always told me I'm not professional enough, or I'm gonna have to work harder because I'm Black. Yeah. We're just repeating what was told to us.
That's it. It's all perpetuated.
Yes.
Over time. And we're just like, okay, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. But I love this idea that it's not me. I'm not a victim,
Yes.
right? So then it's empowering because now I can take back that power. And it's like, you know what it reminds me of, Crystal? It's like when somebody has been diagnosed with an illness.
Yeah.
And they identify with the illness. So it's like, I have high blood pressure. I have diabetes, right? You identify with the illness. So I like that analogy because it's like, you know, to your point, as women, especially as women of color, we now identify with this label of the angry Black woman or, you know, the imposter syndrome, you know, whatever label it is. And when you take that label off yourself, you're no longer a victim. Now you're empowered. Now you can say, oh, it's not me. Right. And so now you can make adjustments accordingly. And then you can be more authentic. Because that's what I feel like this all leads to, this inauthenticity in the workplace as women of color, always putting on this coat, this shield, which all contributes and perpetuates to the whole imposter syndrome thing, which now reading this article, is it really a thing? That's what makes you question the whole concept.
And that is the beauty of this life, Kay. Questioning things, not trying to avoid it, but just like, oh, it's here. Okay, cool. How can I look at this differently? Because those that are listening, whatever you have done to get yourself to this point was beneficial. You did it for a reason. You learned from it. You gathered information from it, whether it helped you, it empowered you, maybe it frustrated you. All of that served a purpose. Now, when we're talking about, how about we not label ourselves as an imposter? How about we not do that and see what that feels like? Reading that article, and I know for some who probably won't read it or didn't read it, I did highlight some parts because I get it. No judgment.
Yeah, it's a short read.
It is a short read, and it really made me feel like you said it perfectly. We get away from being our authentic self. And isn't that the easiest thing for us to do?
Oh, it's so easy.
It really, like, we are all different. Kay and I may have like close to similar complexion.
Yeah.
There's so many emotions that are coming up that when I read it, I was like, I needed this before I left my corporate. I needed this before I entered a corporate job. This is a call. Anyone who is listening to this, please share this with your friends, your family, your kids, your aunts, uncles, like, especially those of color and just women in general too, because we don't see a lot of us in leadership roles. And I was going to read the part where it states, leaders must create a culture for women and people of color that address systematic biases and racism. Only by doing so can we reduce the experiences that culminate in so-called imposter syndrome among employees from marginalized communities, or at the very least, help those employees channel healthy self-doubt into positive motivation, which is best fostered within a supportive work culture. Perhaps then we could stop misdiagnosing women with imposter syndrome once and for all.
I love it.
It's such just a simple way of you showing up as you, because when you do, you bring different ideas, you bring different perspectives. But if we all start copying everybody, we're just repeating the same BS.
Exactly. We're just perpetuating that same, what do you call it? Not stereotype, but that same message.
Yes.
The same message.
And we're getting the same outcome. Same thing.
Absolutely.
Kay and I, before we started recording, she was sharing with me, because I was telling her I had been looking for a job. And in reading this article, it has enlightened me to remember, Crystal, there's no one else like you. Even if that job description, half of it, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they're saying. But you know what? I know I can talk to someone and say, hey, when you say this in the job, what does that look like?
Yes.
You might find out the hiring person's like, Chris, I don't know what that looks like. We just put that in there. And how exciting would that be? Or scenario number 2, hey, when you put that in the job description, what does that look like?
Yeah.
You know what? It's kind of hard to describe, but let me try. Like, oh, wow, they've never been asked that before, but yet they're going to try to explain it to me so that I understand. Scenario number 3. Hey, when I read the job description, what does that look like? And they could be like, you don't know what that looks like? No, that's why I asked the question. And then you get to decide, is this someone I want to work with? Are you able to give me that space to ask a vulnerable question? Because this is all new. It is common to be nervous. It is common to be like, ooh, will my coworkers like me? Will my boss be able to empower me to make mistakes so then I can learn from it? That is what Kay was talking about when you were seeping in or taking a peek into what that culture is.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking when I was talking earlier about like how can you, before you actually take a role, how can you feel out what the culture is like? And absolutely, Crystal, what you just said is a perfect way to do that. And we forget that when we go on these interviews, we're not just getting interviewed, we're interviewing too.
Say that again.
When you go on a job interview, not only are you being interviewed, but you should be interviewing your potential employer as well. Because as Crystal was saying, that's one of the ways that you can sort of pre-qualify the culture to see just what you said, Crystal, like, okay, so is this manager going to be the type of manager that's open to me questioning things or me asking a vulnerable question? Like if you ask somebody a question and they say, well, you don't know that. And you say, no, that's being vulnerable. Like, hey, I'm saying I don't know. And how is that manager or that potential manager react? So that is a perfect way. If some of the people that are listening, when we were talking about that previously, were asking themselves, well, how do you do that? Like, that sounds good, but how do I pre-qualify a culture? You know, that's a perfect way to do it. So I love that.
I just wrote that down. Pre-qualify that employer, because that is powerful. We now take back our power. We never gave it away. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to make sure I can't wear braids. Maybe I need to put my locks back so they don't look like locks. Let me wear a pantsuit or a skirt or something that I normally wouldn't wear. And now I'm uncomfortable. So I'm just exposed. I'm not confident. You're supposed to be showing up at an interview confident. You're like, oh,
the best. Yeah, exactly. No, and you're so right. We do all these things to comply, to fit in, and then it defeats the purpose of us walking in there in our uniqueness, in our brilliance, in our fierceness. Now we're so self-conscious about the locks or the natural hair or whatever it is. And so we're not at our best. And then since we're not at our best, now we're perpetuating this idea of imposter syndrome.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh. Inauthenticity. Now it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that we've created for ourselves, all because we're trying to fit into a mold that really was never set up for us to win or
fit in.
Yeah. Or it wasn't set up that way.
What's the word?
Thrive?
Flourish. Yes. Thrive, flourish from. Like, I want to get into this mold. Like, hey, knock, knock. You know, when you get into the mold, you're killing yourself slowly. Right. You do know that, right?
Right.
And then when you think of that, like, what is that mold? And me and Kate said it earlier. Yes. Why was it created? You know, it was.
And that was a whole nother thing in the article. I didn't mean to cut you off, but the whole thing about the white male thing.
Yeah.
And how even though they're incompetent, you know, oftentimes the things that they do are seen in a different light than the things that women do, you know. And so they talked about that too. I wrote down a quote about it, but I
got it.
You do?
I do.
Yeah. Or they said something like, confidence does not equal competence.
Yes.
Was a quote when they were talking about the male perspective.
Y'all got to read the article, because otherwise this podcast is just going to turn into me reading their article.
Right.
But Kay, I wanted to go back because when I was sharing about applying for jobs, you had mentioned this tool you have that I'm really excited to dig my hands in because I think this is going to, after everyone listens to this, this is the next step. It just makes sense. So go ahead and share that.
Yeah. So what I did was I put together, I call it a dream job discovery list. And so what I did was I put together over 200 job titles. You know, a lot of times when we're looking for work, we just get stuck on what do I even want to do? What do I like to do? You know, I always talk to my clients about, well, think about when you were a kid. What did you like to do as a kid? Or, you know, what do you do and you just lose track of time? And people are like, I can't think. So sometimes just seeing that visual of an actual job title can spark something in you, creativity, you know, start you to brainstorm and to think about, okay, what are the possibilities? So I put together this list. There are journal prompts within the PDF where you can just start thinking about what would it be like to do this particular role as a photographer or a content creator, whatever the thing would be. And so hopefully it will get you started, get your juices flowing, your brain juices flowing, and just get you into that place where you can start to think about what you'd like to do. It's totally free.
Yeah.
You can just go to my website. Yeah. So it's yourgenxcareer.com, yourgenxcareer.com. You can go there, you can click on freebie and you can download that dream job discovery list.
And y'all know I love y'all. So I'm going to put in the show notes. So you can just click on the hyperlink and download it. And Kay, when you mentioned what did you enjoy doing as a kid? This is a funny story, y'all. I used to walk around my house. Well, let's rewind. Me and my sisters, we got a karaoke machine and we used to do music, but then we started, me and my younger sister, Carissa, shout out to you. We would write down news anchor reports like, hi, everyone. Today on I-95, there was an accident involving us. Like we had, so.
Oh my God.
So when Kay says go back and think about what you did, I used to act like I was receiving an award and thanking God, thanking my family. This might seem like, but when she says to go back, I played in dirt. Yes, that's what she's talking about. Did you play in dirt? What did you enjoy about? Did you want to plant stuff? Did you actually want to build stuff with it? Like, did you actually maneuver water to move? This is what she's talking about. Because as kids, we don't have all of these blocks. We're not, for most of us, because I can't speak for everybody and their experience growing up. We know what we want to do as kids. We don't have a lot of life experience to kind of scare us or hold us back. And when I go back to that, I used to be scared to speak publicly. Now I'm a speaker.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Like when I went to Richard Bland, which is a junior college, I had to take a public speaking class. The instructor said, if you look down, you will get points taken off. And I said, I'm getting effing points taken off because I'm not looking up. And I did. I looked down, read it the whole time, went to my seat. What did
you get? What was your grade?
I don't even remember. I know I passed the class.
You're so funny.
I did not care.
Listen, I'm about to be getting some points taken off because I'm not looking. That's funny. Oh my gosh. And now look at you now. Look at you now.
That is I was definitely afraid, but when I go back, it's because I would see the world differently. And I thought something was wrong with me. So I was tired of telling people, oh, what about that? Or asking them a question and looking at me like, what? And instead of me feeling like, Dad, Crystal, why did you ask that question? Now people think you're crazy, you're stupid. Instead of being like, oh, you don't know either? All right, cool. Right. We both don't know. Like, I made myself the victim. But
automatically,
I'm excited to dive into this link because to hear 200 job titles, and that's just what you created.
Right.
How many people thought about that?
Right.
Like, who can just name off 200 job titles right now?
Right.
So you're essentially helping people get unstuck, them uncovering what it is that they want to do, how they want to do it, where they want to do it. And I'm just so excited. Like, I was just so excited.
I'm so excited too. I'm excited for you to take a look at it. And I know it sounds so corny, but I really want to help people to move forward because, we talk about these workplace issues. We spend so much time, so much headspace is put into what we do for a living and what that means. And then the work environment, and then how are we perceived because of what we do. I mean, there's so many layers to work that, man, if on top of all that, you're miserable every day, come on. And with the way the world is now, there are just so many different opportunities, so many different work models, so many different ways that you can do something that you enjoy, whether it's on the side of another job or whether it's full time. I mean, it's like you can really create what it is that you want. And none of us are victims. We're all powerful creators.
Yes.
And so I love this tool because it really does put that power back in your hands. Like I can create the role that I want. I can envision myself and then I can do the work, of course, but then I can actually put myself where I see myself. So
yes.
I'll go off on that because I'm just very passionate about people doing what they love, people not being miserable at work. That's just one of my pet peeves. So
I think you ended that perfectly, Kay. You can decide to start small. You can decide to take a big old leap. Whether that's reaching out to Kay, knowing more about how her coaching one-on-one works with her, or just downloading the free PDF. But like you said, it's to keep people moving forward.
Yes.
And you get to decide what forward looks like for you. To all the listeners that are listening, you get to decide. You have that power. So before we wrap up, Kay, please share with the people where they can find you, where they can hear more of you, whatever else you want to share, because this has been amazing.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much once again, Crystal. I had so much fun. I knew I was going to have fun, but, I think I had more fun than I thought I would have.
Yes, I feel the same.
It was fun. But yes, you can find me either on the GenX Career Show. So wherever you get your podcast, I would love for you to check it out. I am going to have Crystal on the show at some point. So hopefully you will check out her episode or just check out the podcast in general. You can go to my website, which is yourgenxcareer.com, yourgenxcareer.com. You can download the freebie, but you can also listen to all of my podcast episodes there and just find out a little bit more about me and what I do. And if you are in career transition and you want to chat, there's a way to schedule a call with me as well.
Thank you, Kay. Oh man, like you said, I have so much energy just flowing through.
I know, me too. Yeah, it's been really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I reached out to you, and I'm so glad that you didn't reject me.
No. And I'm thankful that this is just the beginning of a really dope friendship and
absolutely
professional connection, which I have been cultivating for a couple of years now. So I'm thankful for that. So thank you, Kay.
You're so welcome. Thank you. I stay unstuck by surrounding myself with dope individuals like Crystal Simmons. I stay unstuck by tapping into the teachings of my favorite mentors, some of whom I've never even met. I stay unstuck by reminding myself that everything is always working out for me, and any thoughts to the contrary are just an illusion. I stay unstuck by connecting with close friends and family who love me and have my best interest at heart. And the final one is I stay unstuck by remembering all of the people that need my help and that I am on divine assignment, I'm on purpose, and that I have everything I need right now to succeed. And it's all within me.
Hey peeps, did y'all enjoy that episode as much as Kay and I did? If you did, please show Kay some love by following her on all the social media outlets, like her IG. She's at K Kirkman, KayKirkman. Or if you're in those Twitter spaces, I'm not, but if you are, you can find her as K Kirkman there as well. Be sure to check out Kay's podcast, the GenX Career Show podcast. Again, that's the Gen, Gen, letter X, Career Show podcast. I started listening to her earlier episodes and I enjoyed her perspective and her guests she had on as they revisited their past experiences together in the radio land many, many years ago. But of course, make sure you click the link to grab your very own dream job discovery list, curated by Kay. It's a collection of over 200 job titles designed to spark your creativity, ignite your passion, and get you one step closer to work you truly enjoy. Again, be sure to connect with Kay and tell her how much you enjoyed her being here and being so dope. Here are the unstuck questions and gems that were dropped. Number 1. So often, we go into these roles and we look at the salary and benefits or the commute, but we rarely look at the culture of the workplace. Think about that workplace environment or culture could be fostering the idea of imposter syndrome because of the lack of diversity. Number 2, sometimes we get stuck, and then what's intended to be a season of transition turns into a season of scarcity because we fall into that mindset of something that was supposed to be temporary is now a permanent mindset in how we view the world. Number 3, we normalize dysfunction in the workplaces. We take on the idea that this is just what we deal with, and we don't realize how it's impacting us. Number 4, it's not you. You're not damaged. Just because I have locks doesn't mean I'm not professional. Just because my skin is darker than others doesn't mean I'm not worthy. If I identify as a woman or don't identify as any gender doesn't mean I'm less than. How powerful is that to feel that it's not you, but the culture? Number 5, how do you pre-qualify the culture of a workplace environment? You show up authentically you, and be curious, ask questions to decide if this is a place you feel supported, informed, or cared for. When you are vulnerable to ask those questions, you desire to gain clarity for your decision. You don't have to put it all on the hiring manager. It's your decision for that particular role. Number 6, show up in your uniqueness, in your brilliance, in your fierceness, because you are the gift. There is no one like you. Baby. Number 7, when we try to fit into the mold that wasn't designed for us, we are slowly killing ourselves, our process, our being. Number 8, you can really create what it is that you want. We are all powerful creators. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, rate, leave a review of this podcast to boost and highlight the work we are putting in together to raise the energy of others, build a safe space to grow, and honor our voices and stories through it all. Before we go, y'all know we reached over 1,000 downloads. Shout out to the Crystaltown peeps. I so appreciate y'all. We're still climbing. We're still making a difference, and I thank y'all for that. So I'm sending you love and light through this mic as you write your unstuck questions and gems to turn your actions into win. Until then, say it for me. Stay unstuck.